Fantasy Source Baseball Podcast, the last one of this season. My name is David A. Arnott. I'm here with Brad Pinkerton and Matt Lutovsky. First time we've got three people in the booth, as it were, in the luscious Sporting News studios would be one way of putting it. Do you guys have any thoughts on the decor?
Fantastic.
Fantastic, Matt?
It's lovely.
Lovely? Okay. Yeah. You guys seem unenthusiastic about it. I hope you're more enthusiastic about the fantasy awards columns that you guys wrote for Fantasy Source Baseball and SportingNews.com. We're going to talk about them today. It's always good to look back at who we thought were going to be great before the season and then how it actually turned out, try to reevaluate our methods, so on and so forth. Let's start with who we thought were the most valuable hitters and pitchers of the season this year. You guys did a poll of the staff, Fantasy Source staff.
Well, he did.
Well, Brad did.
I was dictator, and I just did my own.
Well, I hope you were a benevolent dictator.
Yeah, I guess.
More or less.
Yeah.
Brad, you did a poll.
Hit and run is very democratic, so
yes.
I let the fantasy owners in our experts league speak their minds.
Okay, so what did we come up with for the most valuable fantasy hitter of the year?
Well, no surprise. I think it's Matt Kemp, and you look at his overall stats; they're outstanding. I mean, they're better than everyone else. He's coming close to his 40-40 prediction, although it'll fall a little short, and that's far and away better than what anyone else is doing. So I think he was the runaway. I actually voted, my first place vote was to Jose Bautista, just because he gets that third base tag. You know, he's plus 40-plus home runs again, 100 runs, 100 ribbies, over 300 average, and that's pretty solid. You plug that in at third base. While Kemp, overall was more valuable when all is said and done with his stats. I think there's a lot of outfielders that competed at least with what he did, and you could have grabbed one in several other different rounds. But I think what Bautista got you at third base and round value, I think that to me was most valuable.
So it's a positional scarcity argument.
Part of it.
Okay. Matt, most valuable pitcher in fantasy?
I think it's Verlander. I mean, I'm very tempted to say Clayton Kershaw, but I think Verlander just shines above him a little bit. I think I believe he's got a lower whip, which helps, and he's got that great ERA because he has a good batting average on balls in play, which is really helping his overall numbers. But I think he's the guy, and he's just been there. He really hasn't had a bad start. I can't even remember a bad start he's had. I know he's had one. I feel like Kershaw, there was a couple times where I was like, Kershaw, bad start. But they've both been great, and Halladay, Cliff Lee, you could throw a lot of guys in there, but I think those two stand out.
I think on your point about batting average on balls in play, that doesn't really matter to us at this point. It's not. We're not trying to project what happened in the future. Yep. But as for what actually happened, Verlander's wins, the one thing that you can't really control that well in fantasy, he blows everyone else away.
Yeah, we don't care why it happened. We just care that it did happen, and it did happen. And he's going to win 25 games at least, and there you go.
Let's stay with you, Matt, as far as the pitching bust of the year, a guy that a lot of people may have drafted as high as the first or second round, or was there anybody along those lines, a really high draft pick that just completely cratered?
Well, I think one guy that stands out to me a little bit, and it's not totally his fault, but Brett Anderson. I mean, he was a guy that he wasn't a super high pick, but he was a guy that a lot of people were excited about, really thought was going to break out. And he pitched really well early. Then he started struggling, probably due to injury, and then he got shut down for the year. And I think that was really disappointing, and I think a lot of people were kind of blindsided by that a little bit, even though he's had injury problems in the past. We should have seen it coming. But nonetheless, he just didn't give us what we were looking for.
At least early in the season, he provided a really interesting contrast to Trevor Cahill, who was a guy that everyone expected to just fall off the face of the earth. But he ended up being the kind of guy that you looked at and said, wow, when I actually watch him pitch, that fastball moves 8 inches.
Right.
And it was craziness.
And I think the other pitcher that stands out is Ubaldo Jimenez, really taking a step back after his breakout season.
Yeah, what's his ERA up to now? Is it still over 4?
Yeah, it's not good, and the move to the AL and out of Coors Field still didn't really help him.
Brad, when we talk about the bust hitters, I think that there's one guy that comes to mind, and then there's everyone else.
Yeah, this is a category that usually is so spread out because hitters have just hurt owners in so many different ways. But usually we try to eliminate the guys who are injured and really couldn't help it. But, if they're constantly injured and then not performing even when they're on the field, then that all comes into to play. But the guy that everyone voted for was Adam Dunn, and he definitely ran away with this award. And you look at his final numbers, he had a historically bad season, just awful. And it's so unbelievable that I think now you have to put him as a front runner for the Comeback Player of the Year award next year.
So you do think that it's not a permanent change, that it just didn't come together this year? You think there's hope for him next year?
Well, other than his batting average, the worst part about Dunn this year was the consistency he brought into this season forced every owner to hang on to him for far too long. And I think eventually we're going to look back preseason next year, once this is passed and we get the bad taste out of our mouths, we're going to look at his consistency and what happened before this season is going to be such an anomaly that we're going to give him a free pass and hopefully he will bounce back.
In your personal opinion, how would you project him for next year, assuming he's going to be starting?
I have 30 home runs and pushing let's say 90 RBIs, but I mean he has the potential to bounce back like that big of a way.
All right, let's stick with you, Brad, again. The Rookie of the Year among fantasy hitters. There were a lot of them, I thought, in the American League West to start out, and then also different types of hitters.
Yeah, this was a tight race. Eric Hosmer he edged Mark Trumbo in the voting. I actually voted for Trumbo. Hosmer got 6 first-place votes and 37 total points out of our voters. So he ran away with the award. But I think what owners were looking at mostly is his contribution once he got up from that point on versus what Trumbo did for the entire season. So where Trumbo gets the advantage in home runs and ribbies and in the counting categories, Hosmer made up for his higher batting average and what he was able to do in a shorter amount of time. So I think for me, the true Rookie of the Year would have been Trumbo just because he had more numbers to offer for more games. But next year, draft day, I want Eric Hosmer.
I mean, Trumbo is one of those guys that you could have taken a flyer on at the very beginning of the season, said like, okay, first week, I'm just picking him up and I'm going to see what he can do.
Yeah, especially if you were the guy who drafted Kendry Morales and you want to cover your bases.
Oh, yeah. And then Hosmer, to me, ended up being the kind of guy that if you had Derek Lee or someone like that who just didn't do well at all, you tried to be the first guy on the waiver wire to get him. At the end of the season, Trumbo, I believe, has something like 28, 29 home runs. Hosmer's not quite there. But in that compressed time, like you said, I think Hosmer was better.
Right.
Matt, Rookie Pitcher of the Year.
Well, first, I have to get back to one more bust with a clear conscience, Francisco Liriano. We cannot leave him out. Cannot leave him out. But the Rookie Pitcher, I think it's a tough call, actually, between Craig Kimbrell, who's probably been the best closer, bar none, and then Michael Pineda, who was just a fantastic starter. And there's other good ones. Jeremy Hellickson's still a rookie, technically. He had a fantastic year. Brandon Beachy had a fantastic year. So it's tough to differentiate, but I think Kimbrell obviously is the closer. I mean, without question, he's the closer, and then Pineda's the starter.
Now, what separated Pineda from the other contenders among the starting pitchers?
Is K/9. I mean, Beachy had a better K/9 than him actually, but obviously didn't pitch as much because he had that injury that kind of took him out of commission there for a little while. But Pineda's one of, I think there's 8 pitchers right now with K/9s at 9.0 or above, and he's one of them, and that's pretty amazing for a rookie.
Now, especially for keeper league players, do you suggest tempering expectations for Pineda next year? Because there is a school of thought which holds that Tim Lincecum type guys are once in a generation, and that Pineda, as great as he was, almost inevitably he's not going to be as good next year.
Yeah, I didn't see, he struggled in the second half a little bit this year. I think we've seen him struggle. I actually think that's a good thing. For all the times I watched him, I didn't see anything that he did that made me think, okay, he's going to get knocked around. I mean, it could happen, of course, but he just looks like a horse on the mound. He's huge. He's a big guy. He's a power pitcher, and he seems he can do it all, and we know he's in the great ballpark.
I mean, he might end up this comparison is made numerous times, but a right-handed CC Sabathia, where
he's got that look.
Even if he loses a little bit on the power, if he's already a good pitcher, and he knows what he's doing out on the mound, he'll be able to adjust.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of him next year.
I think he's following the footsteps of his teammate, Felix Hernandez.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's going to be much separation next year.
Oh, I mean, and now that could have a lot of great things for the Mariners, too.
Mm-hmm.
Let's wrap this up with a little bit of prognostication. We have a category called the 1-year wonder. Mm-hmm. So, Matt, starting with you, which pitcher do you think is a 1-year wonder, is most likely to be a 1-year wonder? The guy who just has a great season this year, not likely to repeat it.
Well, I think the guy that just jumps out is Ryan Vogelsong. I think everyone's going to target him as that. I'm not convinced he is, to be honest with you. I think he's a solid pitcher. I just think, he regressed a little in the second half, but he's still really good. He pitches great at home. As long as he's with the Giants again, I think he can be fine. The guy that jumps out to me anyway as a 1-year wonder in terms of going from elite just back to good or average is James Shields a little bit. This is a guy we've seen be really good, we've seen be bad, and we don't know what team he's going to be on next year. I think that could play into it. Tampa's played as a really good pitcher's park the past couple years, so he's the kind of guy I think who's going to get drafted pretty highly next year, and he scares me a little bit.
Now, what exactly is it that scares you about him? Is it that he just doesn't strike out everybody he pitches against?
It's just that we know he can be bad. I mean, for 2 years. I mean, the 2 years before this, I think 2 years ago he was, right around average, and last year he was bad. And now all of a sudden I'm supposed to believe he's an elite pitcher again. I don't know if I'm buying that.
Now, compared to Vogelsong, for instance, like the difference that I see, and I do kind of agree with you,
right,
is that Vogelsong seems to have changed how he pitches,
yes,
whereas Shields hasn't.
And also, Vogelsong's going to fall in as a guy that no one wants, and you're going to be able to get him in the 14th round, whereas James Shields is probably going to be gone by the 6th round.
So, Matt, what's your outlook for Shields next year, assuming he doesn't return to the AL East?
I mean, that changes things too. Maybe he goes to the NL and he's even better. I mean, anything's possible with this guy. That's kind of what scares me, but... I mean, if he's in the AL again, I'm a little nervous about him.
Brad, what about hitters that you would consider a one-hit wonder, and also who did the staff vote for?
Yeah, well, actually, this was a three-way race between Royals. So Melky Cabrera actually won the race, if that's what you want to call it. This guy came out of nowhere. We've seen him be decent before with the Yankees. We've seen him be horrible before with the Yankees and the Braves. He just completely fell off the radar and then came back this year. Wasn't even guaranteed a starting job all season. And next thing you know, he's a 2020 threat, and he's one of the elite outfielders in fantasy. So I'm not buying into it, and apparently none of our voters are either. But right on his heels was Jeff Francoeur, who we've seen be good before, but he's very up and down. He still swings
Never
at
seen
everything.
him steal 20 bases before.
No,
though, right?
that might be the most surprising thing of all, actually. So, for that to come out of nowhere, for his, he's still not disciplined at the plate. Yeah. So we got to expect a decline in batting average and things like that. So I got to think every one of his numbers are coming down next year. And then the next guy, Alex Gordon, who actually took our Breakout of the Year award, also got 2 first-place votes for one-year wonder.
See, I voted for Frenchie because I think that he's the kind of guy who will continue getting starting roles on major league teams because he's such a good defensive player and he's not horrific at the plate.
Good guy, too.
Oh, yeah.
Can't leave out that clubhouse
man
presence.
smiles relentlessly. But, I mean, like, if he's going to be playing, like, teams will put up with him hitting 230 just to get his arm in the outfield. And I think that even if he ends up on a really good team like the Rangers when he was with them, he'll still get 2 starts a week just for that reason. And he's going to tempt people because he had this good season and then that one good year with the Braves.
Well, and there's also that Joe Posnanski always likes to talk about his first month with every new team.
Yes.
He hits 350 or whatever. So just keep that like April target, Jeff Francoeur next year.
All right, guys, we have wrapped up the fantasy baseball season. Any parting words of wisdom as we go into the final week or so, 2 weeks of the fantasy baseball season?
I have no more words of wisdom. I'm out.
You have tapped out of wisdom?
I'm out for the rest of this year.
The only word I have right now is football.
Oh, well,
That's it.
That seems to be the consensus around the country. Brad, Matt, thanks for joining us.